The first big story I ever saw about cops cooking the books to make the crime numbers look a lot better than they really are, I saw on the front page of the New York Times. And it just went through case after case after case of people who were victimized by crime. The cops roll in, and they basically won't even take a crime report of a burglary that just happened a few minutes ago, or a woman who was beaten in a burglary a few minutes before. And the cops look at the people and go, look, we're not going to catch him, so we're not going to take a report. And of course, these are the same, they work for the same people that a year later will go before the front of cameras and say, oh yes, crime is down in New York. Everything we're doing to reduce crime is working. We've seen the exact same story in Chicago, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Memphis. In New Orleans, the crime reporting got so bad, so deceitful, covering up so much crime that the state had to come in and take it over. Stories out of Los Angeles, Milwaukee, just over and over and over and over again. They're not hiding it. They're telling people that we got to drive the crime numbers down. We're going to arrest fewer people. We're going to arrest 1/2 to 2/3 fewer people. And you're going to be safe. You know why? Because when we show you the numbers are going to go way down too. They're bragging about this in Chicago and Philadelphia now. They have record low number of people in the jails, even as people in the neighborhoods are going, wow, I've never seen this much crime around here before. Let's take a look at the most recent. We're faking the number story out of Washington, D.C. And then look at all the two things all these stories have in common.
An exclusive Fox 5 investigation exposing new allegations that the crime reports in the district are skewing the numbers. A whistleblower speaks out for the first time about how D.C. police officers on the street are being asked by higher ranks to dumb down felony crimes to misdemeanors and in some cases to just incidents. Fox 5's Marina Morocco has been tracking these claims for months. She's a story you'll see only on Fox 5.
Crime, an affliction that plagues all major U.S. cities. Here in the district, the past 3 years have seen an ebb and flow of violence, homicides skyrocketing in 2015, then a 2-year dip, and in 2018, yet another spike. But if you look closely at D.C. police crime stats, you'll see violent crimes like robberies and shootings continue to shrink in number. But are those really the facts?
They want to keep statistics there.
This veteran MPD officer is disguising his identity to protect his job, but is blowing the whistle on what he calls years of corruption and crime reclassification by the Metropolitan Police Department.
If it's a burglary, but if it's a burglary where someone entered the home, but nothing was taken or anything, they have us reclassified to like an unlawful entry, which brings it down from a felony to a misdemeanor.
Felonies are reported to the FBI. The Uniform Crime Report compiles the statistics, providing a national barometer of violent crime for the record.
How do you not investigate someone who's been shot?
Because what they do is, if the victim is uncooperative, don't want to give up any information, they'll make an injured person to the hospital.
Which is an incident and not a crime?
Exactly.
A search of D.C. police reports for a 19-month period up to April of 2018 showed MPD had taken nearly 3,000 reports for injured person to hospital. Of those reports, 61 were for gunshot wounds. Only 11 were self-inflicted. But the classification infers no crime has been committed. Yet in some cases, there are shell casings that cover the street. In others, victims telling police they've been shot by someone else. But because the shooting is now listed as an incident instead of a crime, many times this officer says the investigation ends there.
You on scenes have been told to reclassify crimes, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I've been on the scene. I know what it is. But I said, no, we're going to make it this. And, we looking at one another like, wow. Like, okay.
And you reclassify it?
Yeah. There's no need to get no discipline over that, so you just go ahead and reclassify it.
D.C. police brass is often referred to as white shirts, and among their many duties, they're in charge of the Summer Crime Prevention Initiative, SCI has been around since 2010. It's an effort to reduce the spike in summertime crime within D.C.'s most violent neighborhoods. Sources say SCIs are considered a competition amongst captains. Multiple white shirt sources turned down opportunities for an on-camera interview for fear of retaliation. But records from 2013 through 2017 show captains who achieved the lowest crime reduction were swiftly promoted through the ranks. 2018 data from D.C.'s Department of Human Resources shows that at a minimum, a promotion from captain to inspector or commander could mean a raise of $12,000 or $32,000.
Have you been told, in your experience by white shirts, hey, listen, don't do that as a felony. Make it something else?
Oh, lots of times.
What's your experience with the white shirts? Do you think there's a lot of people under pressure to cook the numbers?
Oh, most definitely. There's no question about that.
Common examples of crime reclassification provided were assault with a dangerous weapon gun, dumbed down to injured person to hospital, or robbery, force, and violence to simple assault theft, burglary to unlawful entry, and carjackings to theft once stolen auto, which is technically still a felony but classified as a property crime, a classification not reflected in the violent crime reports. Fox 5 first reported D.C. Council Chairman Phil Mendelson's girlfriend was carjacked this past July, just minutes away from Barracks Row and Eastern Market in Southeast. D.C. officers on a private Facebook forum joked about the classification and how the charge would have been watered down had it happened to any other citizen. So what happens now? Who is telling the truth? And is this systemic corruption?
I think that it's not uncommon when there is a shooting victim that we've had instances where someone is uncooperative. And I know that is a challenge for MPD. But from my perspective, and I think for most people, someone who's shot, a crime has taken place, period.
Ward 6 Council member Charles Allen is at the helm of the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee, which among many things has oversight of the MPD. Allen says he has not heard from officers that crime reclassification is an issue.
If there are efforts that are, whether it's downward pressure or otherwise, that are having people intentionally misclassify and change classifications, then that's a problem, and I want to know about that.
It actually is embarrassing. I mean, because see, my thing is, we reclassifying these crimes, and we sitting out this falsehood like the District of Columbia is safer than what it actually is.
And in a statement, the MPD said, in part, quote, the Metropolitan Police Department has not been made aware of any allegations of illegitimate crime reclassification. To lower crime statistics, we would consider such an allegation to be extremely serious. And when we...
So if you read Don't Make the Black Kids Angry, and I think I have some of this in White Girl Bleed a lot too, we have a lot of stories about how cities cook the books to make their crime numbers look better. But there's always two things these stories, even when people do stories on this, like Chicago Magazine did a great two-part story on it, but even when people do stories on this, they always have two things in common. One, they don't cast a macro look around the country. They just stay on their city. They don't say, oh yeah, the same thing's happening in Milwaukee, New York, Chicago, Baltimore, Washington, Memphis, New Orleans, LA, and just go all over the place where police departments have been busted for cooking the books to make the numbers look better than they really are. And the second thing they don't talk about is that the reason they cook the books is because there's so much black crime and violence. Now the city officials are basically, and district attorneys are saying it very explicitly in places like Philadelphia, Boston, St. Louis, Chicago. They're saying black people are victims of white racism, and why are we going to put somebody in jail if they commit a crime just because white racism forced them to commit that crime? We've got some bad district attorneys out there. The guy in Washington, D.C., you heard him at the end go, well, we're not certainly aware of anyone ever doing that. Well, I like this whole crime number thing and how they're distorting it and how they've turned these numbers into virtually useless indicators for anybody to use when you're talking about what we should and should not do about this level of criminality. Because the people in these big cities know that if they look at what's really going on, they're going to see this black crime and violence wildly out of proportion, even worse than it is now, because the numbers are really bad right now. So they're cooking the books, and they still can't really, they can't wipe out how bad these numbers are.
Please, sir, I want some more.
The other night I was watching some reruns of that TV show called Blue Bloods, Tom Selleck. So they had this one hotshot captain they had transferred over to this one district because there's too much crime there, too many complaints. He was out there, and supposedly kicking butt, and you see a big meeting in a room, and everybody's going, yeah, that Captain Smith, man, we ought to promote him because he really took care of some business out there. Well, about 3/4 of the way through the show, we realized that Captain Smith has been cooking the books. I think Tom Selleck, busted him down, and everybody yelled at him. He was kind of like drummed out of his job. I mean, if the people who write Tom Selleck's show know this is happening, how can the people who run the police department in Washington, D.C. not know what's happening? Of course they know what's happening. That's the reason you bring all these big numbers crunchers in the first place. Yeah, it's a tool to help you. In theory, at best, it's a tool to help you direct your resources, time and place to put the most cops to catch the most criminals. At worst, it's a tool for shady people who run the system, the politicians. The cops are heroes, the politicians are not. It's a crutch for politicians who run the system to cover up how bad, how dangerous their chocolate city is. Now, they're not going to do anything about it. They're not going to let anybody talk about it. They're not going to let anybody connect the dots, because connecting the dots in Washington, D.C. and outside of Washington to all these other cities where they do the exact same thing, that makes the black kids angry.